Smiled.
Hello and welcome to Live Coding Happy Hour on this fantastic March 13th, 2020. I am here with my favorite people and moving into the weekend in my favorite way. So let's get started. Let's start with the intros. Chuck.
Hi, Chuck Tomasi, Senior Developer Evangelist. New title since you saw me last on this show. Haha. So, nobody has to ask what TPMM stands for anymore. I've been with ServiceNow for about 10 years. I was a customer for a couple of years before that. Always have some sort of pet programming project in my back pocket. And very excited to be here and learn about what we're going to be doing today. It's so cool.
And Brad.
Hey, everybody. Brad Tilton. I am a developer advocate with the developer program at ServiceNow. I've been doing all sorts of ServiceNow things for about the last decade, and I am excited about today's show. They're letting me drive. We're going to see what happens.
and I'm Brad's partner here at work, Andrew Barnes, developer advocate in the platform business unit. And we are just excited to be here today. Y'all have seen us before, hopefully. So we'll cut right to the beers.
I'm still working through my 8th Street Pale Ale from Four Peaks Brewing. So this is another one. I think is a repeat from a few weeks ago. Got a few of these. It's good. I like it. It's a good Friday afternoon coding beer.
Brad, what you got?
All right. I have it's a Dogfish Head Worldwide Stout barrel aged. I've been into the barrel aged stouts this winter, and I know this is good.
Dogfish Head, nice. I almost grabbed a barrel aged out of my fridge, but instead I went with the Old Rasputin, which is a Russian Imperial Stout. So
someone's gonna be having fun today.
We're gonna have fun on the show today.
What's the ABV on that one, Andrew?
Oh, I don't know.
9?
If you have to look, you can't afford it if you have to look, right? Yeah, it's 9.
Nice.
We'll see how we get through this one.
So today, as we said, Brad is going to be driving. If you didn't notice, we got a brand new launch of the developer site, developer.servicenow.com, where you can get your personal developer instance and training and API documentation for our platform. And what's new on the site right now is all of the information that we've released about Now Experience, which is our new design and UI framework system. Today, we're going to be working in that system, and Brad, who has not a lot of experience with this, is going to be learning live, just as you would, how to get through this. I've had some light experience in this, and Chuck, I believe, has done just a little bit.
Enough to be dangerous.
So we're enough to be dangerous. So we'll work through it so that when you get to working on this, you'll have that leg up because you get to watch us make our mistakes, so you don't have to make the same ones. You can make different ones.
Oh, yeah, and we'll throw in what mistakes we've already made too.
Yeah. One thing to note is I will be releasing a blog here shortly to show you how to. There's a bug with personal developer instances right now.
Oh, okay.
In that these components are web components, and web components have a naming standard, and they can't start with numbers. And
how much time did you spend figuring that one out?
More time than I would like to admit. And all of the personal developer instances scopes start with numbers. So the default scaffolding makes it so that your components don't work. So I've got the details on how to fix that and get around it. I'll be posting that after the show today. So you can find that on the developer site under, what is it? Just the new menu at the top is, it's not share. It's not community. I don't remember what it's called, but it's
Connect.
Connect.
Too easy.
Connect and then blog from there. And we'll get a new version out that solves this problem. But for now, if you're excited and you want to do builds against personal developer instances, you've got to do a couple of things to fix that naming
So
problem.
it's using the company code as part of the widget or the component name?
It's part of the component name.
Oh, didn't know that. Okay.
Because they have to be unique. And so we're using scope plus name, just like we do for pretty much everything.
We didn't start with the X underscore?
And we didn't start with the X underscore. So they dropped the X underscore part.
That's inconsistent with everything else, but okay.
And we're adding the X back. So that is the solution is we're putting the X back. Okay. So X underscore will now solve that. So we have a Meetup app, right, Brad?
Yes.
And you want to talk about what you're going to do before we flip to the share?
Yeah. So we have this Meetup app, and it has a service portal where people, Meetup organizers can come in and interact with the Meetup stuff and do some things in order to manage their Meetups. And there were some things that we wanted to change, and we went into that service portal and tried to change some things. And I mean, it's sometimes difficult to work with other people's service portals that they've built. And we figured, you know what, instead of rebuilding this from the ground up, we're going to rebuild it using components. So we are going to try to build a component. And my goal with this is just to build a component that can interact with the database somehow. So it would be really nice to get a list of meetups. I would settle for a number of meetups that we grab from the meetups table.
I think you're more ambitious than I am for today. So good.
Well, I don't know anything about what it's going to take. So
we'll getting a working deployed component that, renders text statically was sort of the goal for me for today. So if we do more than that, that will be impressive.
So Brad, how much of the pre-setup have you done? Have you installed Node and NPM and all that stuff, or are we going from zero?
So I decided to get a little bit of the pre-setup done, just so that we didn't spend the whole time trying to get me on the right version of Node, which I happen to be on the right version. Okay. So that was nice. But yeah, so I guess we can start.
Yeah, let's go ahead and drop into the share then.
My footnote to that is that I had a horrific problem getting Node installed, or at least the parts that are needed to do the ServiceNow pieces, because of permissions on my computer. And there is an option to say, no, don't install it in user local lib or wherever it's going to install. Install it in my home directory, because I'm the only person using my laptop, let's be honest. And that cleared things up right away. It got rid of all my permissions problems. I mean, I was on the phone with the product manager on a company holiday, and it was about 4 hours of pain and suffering. But there are workarounds if you hit that stuff.
Nice.
All right. So I wanted to start just by sharing the new developer site. And again, if you need to get to the blog, you can go to Connect and click on the blog.
It's a beautiful thing.
But let's go. So I started in Docs. So I'll show that here.
And that's where I advise everyone to start. So the Docs are really prescriptive, step-by-step, get you going off the ground. And then once you need reference material, that's when you want to head over to the developer site. So that's sort of where I drew the line in the blog I wrote about this was, do your initial setup with the information from the Docs site, and then when you need to see more examples and learn more and get the API references and things, head over to the developer site.
All right. So I started here on the Doc site. I did check to make sure I had the latest LTS version, which was long-term support. I did not know what that stood for off the top of my head. And I had the right version, but if you don't have the right version, you may have to uninstall and reinstall. But so I have been through these steps. And then the next page is set up your project. And I did come in and connect to an instance just to make sure.
And so what's a project?
That's a good question. A project. It is, I think it's going to encompass everything, maybe all of the different files and everything I need for my one component. Is that right? Or can I have more than one
Yes.
component in a project?
You can have more than one component in a project, but they deploy
Should
as
I?
is absolutely. So if you have a complex
Okay.
component so if you're using or creating a large component that is leveraging subcomponents that you create or that ServiceNow's provided and you're leveraging, then those will all be either built there directly or brought in as dependencies.
Okay.
I would love to see that if we have time, but if we don't, we'll come back to it, because when I was doing my experiments, it was pretty much one component, one scope, one project, and it felt like it was a lot of back and forth and repeated stuff. Like, oh, I got to install this now, and I got to install it again, and I got to install it again, and it was very repetitive and time consuming. So if there's a way to consolidate a lot of common components into one project / scope, yeah, let's uncover that if we have time today. If not, we'll come back to it.
And so the CLI, so the command line interface that you'll be getting from the setup instructions is called Now CLI. So you'll see that in the commands here. Can you blow it up at least one level, Brad?
Yep.
I'm having a little trouble reading. Yeah, let's make it 2.
Go to 125.
Thanks.
Much better.
All right.
And so you started by already logging into the instance, which is good because I would have to break out the shrubbery for you.
Yeah, because you can see it's basic auth on a command line. You're going to be exposing some credentials.
Yeah. Well, I went ahead and used your credentials, Andrew. So.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I use them all the time. I got Amazon stuff coming.
So yeah, let's grab my command line, and I'm going to make sure that, I got out of this. Do we think I need to re-authenticate?
You will not need to re-authenticate now.
Once you authenticate against a project,
it's stored in that project.
Yep.
Encrypted locally.
All right. Sounds good. So let's go. I do have a folder created, I think. So let's look at, so we're at step 2 here. So I've authenticated to the instance, and I did create a project folder. So what did I call my project folder? I did this a whole couple hours ago, so who knows what I did.
Look in your history.
Back then, yeah.
So type history and see what's in there.
If you're creating a project folder, we have had some issues with cloud-based folder systems, like what's the Microsoft one we're using?
OneDrive.
OneDrive. Yes. If you put your projects out there, there's been some issues with, I think, VS Code extension that we've got, and now CLI. It's like, would they do something crazy with the cloud-based directories when you're syncing them? So you take that with a grain of salt. I prefer to use local directories whenever possible.
Okay.
Thanks,
Chuck.
Yeah.
And
good.
So are you trying to share your terminal? Because we are not seeing it if you want.
I'm about to.
Okay.
I'm about to. Let's go here. I'll share it on top here. Of course, that doesn't look good.
Are you doing terminal, or are you going to do this through VS Code?
Well, so I suspect he's going to do terminal for the commands and then VS Code for the coding part.
Well, you can run the commands in the terminal window of VS Code. So you're really
absolutely you can. Yeah.
Well, I've got the terminal open, so let's
do it there.
Where can I move it that we can still see things?
That's good.
Do this.
Yeah.
All right. So step 3. We have to, what are we doing here?
You're going to create all the scaffolding for your project now, right? So that's what this project command is. And so you're going to give it a name, and the name needs to be a unique name. But don't, for example, well, you can, but don't use your scope name, because then you'll end up with the component name with the scope name in there twice. So I've been using my initials and then the component name, and then actually removing my initials part. But
Yeah,
just,
when I was
just make a
creating,
unique name.
I was creating
right.
some for a demo, and I called them like SN-clock, SN-map, SN-. So I mean, it's just some kind of name that'll help you understand what it is later.
So
But it should
the
be unique.
requirements here are that it's alpha, and there's at least one dash, and they're lowercase. So
All right. Do I have to put my org at
no,
the beginning like we see on
I
here?
don't think so.
I've never seen that before. I don't know what that is.
So these are my initials. You guys can guess what the middle initial stands for.
Oh, well, I
And
mean,
we're
if you're
gonna
doing
call
like
it-
that, then do @BTT, then slash, and then the name of the rest of it.
What
I would
that be
follow
for?
that
Okay.
just to make sure that it stays unique and follows their format. I'm sure there's some reason that I don't know about why we do that format.
Okay, news to me.
Meetup list.
All right.
Sweet.
Meetup list.
And
So I
let's
just
give it
want
a
a list of
description.
meetups.
Like, let's
All
throw the
right.
description in there. If you don't specify scope, it will get the scope and name the component based off of the instance that you're connected to.
Okay.
And that's what I advise you to do, unless you're doing something unusual like the building for a scope that isn't your instance's scope. And
How does it
when
know
I said
which
scope,
scope
I
to
meant
grab? I mean, if
the
you've got
company
multiple-
code.
If you've got multiple scopes on that instance, how's it going to know which one to grab?
Yeah,
if you don't
sorry,
specify?
I misspoke and said scope when I meant company code.
Oh, okay.
So,
Oh, okay.
so if for example you're developing for a customer's org on not their instance potentially, then you want to set the scope yourself.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So that should be
So
enough.
here we're just going to leave scope off. All
Yes.
right.
And so
Do
what
it
that'll
that
do is it will go to your instance and reserve the scope name right then.
Uh-oh.
You get an error. I don't like errors.
We
Oh,
learn
no.
from errors.
Middle not module not found. Oh, have you well, no, you need to do that after you do project.
Do the npm install.
Have you done the login in this folder already, or did you do the login before you created the folder?
Good question. I don't know if I've done it in this folder. Let's I guess let me log in the folder.
So
We'll take this off the screen.
yeah. And if you just do bang now CLI login, so exclamation now CLI login, it'll execute the last command like that you've done.
All right. I believe I did execute it and should be logged in now.
And then you want to clear your terminal with clear before you bring it back.
There we go.
And so we'll want to try that command again.
Here.
I had the privacy shrubbery ready for you when you hit the up key. I was prepared. All right. So it's angry. Let's
Same
see
thing.
let's see the start of the error.
Keytar.
Okay. Well, do a dash offline and see if it builds then. No,
The whole
run the
thing.
command again with dash offline. And so this will not reserve the scope name in the remote instance. Yeah. Okay.
Module not found.
You have a problem.
Maybe I did not successfully go through those steps that I thought I did.
Potentially. What is next?
Should we try the npm install?
Sure. I mean, go ahead. You're going to have to do that after you set up the project
Yeah.
again,
Right.
but see if it's got anything pending. No.
Nothing.
Okay.
Okay.
So we've got the Now CLI installed, and you successfully did the login step, right? It
I
didn't
did.
give you an error or anything when you did that.
It did not.
Looking for my notes.
Try to do the offline step again and set the scope. So do a space -- scope, and then set a scope like x_s_c_ a btt underscore and then like me is probably about as many characters. I don't know, however many
What do
18
we get?
characters
16,
worth is.
12. Okay.
Okay. Well, that's exciting. Yeah, try and
Did you do the scope or not? The dash scope.
yeah,
I did that time.
Okay. So I was checking my notes.
So Andrew suggests handily npm -i keytar -g. Like, if that's the thing we're missing, let's give it to it.
All right. Let's try it.
Did you mean one of these? What does now CLI -- version return you? Does it say 1700? Okay. It
All right.
feels like something's wrong at
Wow.
the base level.
Yeah.
How about we uninstall now CLI and reinstall it? Because that's
Or even Node might be the problem.
if we can't even get a version command out of it. Yeah. I don't even remember. How do I uninstall the now CLI from npm? Is it uninstall npm?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I'm
either.
guessing I is the install. npm space I is install. So npm.
npm -g uninstall package name.
Uninstall.
And then
It was-
now -CLI.
It was at service now / CLI 1700. What was the from the instructions in the doc behind you? It'll say.
Here, I think this was the last step. Now CLI. Oh,
Yeah,
this
you'll
was
need the
last one, I
previous
think.
page.
Oh, previous page.
So
That's install. So there it is.
Where did you go?
And this is what I did on President's Day.
So
day off my ass.
oh wait, no. You want the okay.
Doesn't matter where the G
Very
goes.
good. The G is at the fine. You copied the G. So cool. Run that. Then we'll put it back on. Look at you trying to load it early and it didn't.
This looks like the same
yay.
access problem I had.
Oh.
See how we've got
is
e-access problems?
Yes.
Yeah. Now it's time to do a little Google foo, because there is an npm command or that lets you install it like right into your home directory, which is what I had to do. So hold on, see what we can find. Npm install local directory. I might be getting rid of that -g, but let me check. Downloading, installing packages.
Yeah,
Local.
so that will make it not global. So not for all users. So that would be
Right.
for an individual user then.
Correct. npm global or local packages. Oh, wait a minute. I might have it still in my Slack transcript. Oh, come on, Slack. Be good to me.
Oh, come on, Slack.
I don't think I've talked to this guy since. There's a curl command.
Yeah, so Green Cloud says they had that same problem. They had to uninstall Node in npm and reinstall Node with the NVM. So would you like to go through that, Brad, or do you want to screen share with me and I will type what you tell me?
Let's do that, because I would really like to see
Okay.
something in the instance
All right.
that
All right.
I believe I do have the right Node version.
So Brad will,
Yes.
if we do that, you will commit to adding to the YouTube comments your fix to make your computer happy. Once you make your computer happy.
Good point.
Yes, assuming that I am able to make the computer happy.
Oh, we'll figure it out.
That was
not always safe.
We will make sure that your computer's happy eventually. All right, so let me scale my display way down.
No, I'm not the only person who ran into that.
And let me. Oh, I am not set up for sharing screen. Give me one more second. Somebody fill some time.
So Chuck, your issue was it local permissions related? Is that what you're saying?
I tried so many change owner and change mode commands in Unix. It was crazy. I could never get it to work out of user local. So we found an article that had a command that said, run this and it will install into your home directory, basically. And after that, I had no problem.
Okay. Interesting.
All right.
I should have made better notes on that piece.
We are going to get rid of everything that's not what we want.
It does look like from the YouTube comments, we've got, some people that have run into some issues. So
yeah, and
not,
I tried
not quite a clean process
it. I've tried installing it with root access. It's like half the time it would say, all right, this stuff is owned by you in your home directory, but you don't have access to it. And the other half the time it was, this stuff is owned by a root in this other directory and you don't have access to it. Well, fine. It was a mess.
All right. Let's get rid of all the terminals that exist, get a new terminal, make it bigger. All right, here we are. We are here.
We've gone to the dark side.
We have gone to the dark side. All right, so I am in my components directory. I'm going to make a new directory for Brad's awesomeness.
You've exceeded my 8-character limit.
We've moved into Brad awesomeness, and we're going to now CLI project name is going to be at btt / what'd you say it was meet
meetup dash list.
Meetup dash list. That's
meetup dash list.
Oh, your terminal screen is just off the YouTube screen.
Well, it's too high.
A little high, a little too high.
Too high or too high. Got it. Because I cut off the browser stuff.
Yep.
There we go.
There we go.
And have you switched over to controlling the stream, Brad?
I have not. I will do that.
Did you go to streaming class?
He did. He went to streaming class.
Okay. I did. Now I have to remember it'll be fun.
This is the test.
So meetup list, and now we're going to do description is meetup list. And this is going to build this. Oh, I'm going to need to log in. So we're going to copy all this and store it real quick, right here, just wherever. And we're going to now log in to, I don't remember the syntax for logging in. let's get us a new browser window. New browser window up here. Developers. Well, actually, I know how to get there, which is go to the developer site. Long. Oh, I must be in a profile that's not. And then I'm going to go to the docs for detailed steps on the doc site. So I need to log in, which is here. Let us
CLI login dash host and your host URL dash method
host
basic
HTTPS PS dev program
host method username and password.
dev.
Uh-oh, do we need some shrubbery?
No, I'll just pull it off the screen.
Okay.
Basic username. And now once I've gone to username, I'm going to move off the screen.
Should have asked him first, can you do a now CLI dash version?
And nobody stopped me at the start of this thing, which was I apparently didn't hit tab appropriately. And so my command started with now. It was just now. It wasn't now CLI. Is it dev program dev or dev? I think it's dev program dev.
I don't know.
Yeah. That was for Brad.
Oh, I was muted. I told you it, but I was muted. I would like credit for telling you.
No. What's the freaking instance name?
It's dev program dev.
Dev program dev dot. All right. Well, it does appear to be doing something, so maybe that's right. Checking connection. Yay! All right. Now we have done logged in. We have done logged in. That was great. I'm going to point out how awesome that was. We've logged in. So now we're back up at the step of we were going to get from our VS Code this handy dandy copied thing we had already typed before, pasted in. Now CLI project. So now this should be building the scaffolding for my component. So it is logged into the instance, created that scope, and then locally created all these things that I just said. So that means here in VS Code, I can open a folder.
Mm-hmm.
And Brad, are you ready to take over telling me what to do?
Sure.
Are you going to tell me to open Brad Awesomeness? Because that's funny.
I think you should always open Brad Awesomeness.
Da-da-da.
Dun, da, da. So now I am in VS Code. I am so all of the files that have been created here.
Yep.
These things are right here.
Match.
Yay! And they do. One thing I will point out right off the top is there is already a handy git ignore.
Nice.
And you should be connecting this local repo that has been created for you with a remote repository so that you can work on these components as a team, because you can't reverse. So once you deploy this to an instance, you can't pull it back down from an instance and work on it. So you need to, when you're building your components, commit your files that you generated locally to source control. Okay.
Good.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So the thing I was pointing out with the special case for PDIs is here's our scope name that was generated, and here's the component name. And you'll notice that it's basically this, it's basically Brad plus the component name that I put in. So it will be numbers here, and you'll need to, and I'll detail exactly where you need to remove these in the blog post. But it is, I'll just point them out here. So under source, under the name of your component will be a folder, and in that is index. This create custom element is where you'll need to adjust and add that X dash. And then under example.
So it's X dash, not X underscore.
Yeah, dash is the convention for these components. And then under example and element.js, you'll do the same. And those two places will allow you to deploy your component to the instance. And then I'll show you the one thing you need to do in the instance once we get to that step. While I was filling all the time, what I was supposed to have done is use that time that I was filling there to install all the dependencies after I created the project.
Yep.
But I didn't, so I was bad. But that is, now we have a scaffolding for a component. This will render a component that does nothing right now locally in your computer. So if you go to source and then the component name folder and then index.js, you'll get this view that we're at here. And right here under view is where you actually put what you want the component to do. Like this is where the, I sometimes say, where's the beef? This is where the beef is.
Yep.
So hello, all YouTube and Twitch viewers. So my expectation is this text will appear if I run this component locally. So let's see how we're doing. Oh, we're getting close. So this,
put it in an H1 while you're waiting. Let's make it big.
We'll make it big. All right.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah. We're here.
We're here. Make it big. I approve. There we go.
All right.
So we're almost done rendering, and then we'll be able to render this locally.
Don't you still need to do in the now UI JSON file down below, third from the bottom on the left? Don't you still need to put in the UI builder section, or is that once we place that?
Only if I want it to be in UI builder.
Gotcha. Okay, so we don't need that to run locally.
Nope.
Okay.
So what Chuck was pointing out, and we'll go do that while it's finishing rendering, is there is a special step here under developing components for workspace. So if you're building a component that you actually want to show up in UI builder, so if you want to use UI builder to create landing pages for your workspace, and this component should be one of the options that you choose from there, there's a special step that you have to add. And it's detailed here under add a component to UI builder. But that won't be all of the cases you need. So that's not the default.
Okay. Good to know.
All right. We have built. So that means that we can now CLI develop. And what this does is this is going to set up the environment for me to build, run, and render in a browser locally my component before deploying it to an instance. So it allows me to test this ahead of time. So
that sets up the environment for this component, and you only have to do that this one time.
Right.
Okay.
I already have this.
I think it throws out a little URL, does it not? In that terminal window, it says if you want to test, go here.
I don't remember. I'm a memoryless machine. So it's still thinking about rendering. So there are some commands available for when you're working on this, which I don't actually remember where they are here. I know where they are on the developer site. So if I go to the developer site in reference, now experience UI framework, under the CLI section, and then CLI, I've got all of the commands available and the details.
And I got to say
And
that black looks great. That just pops out much
it
better than the
really
old gray
does pop
stuff.
up, doesn't it? I mean, I think that looks really nice. So under the, not deploy, but develop, you'll see we've got some choices for parameters here. I went with the default, but you can definitely use some of these other choices, which allow you to specify which port and host and which entry to render on that. But if you don't specify anything, it renders the entry that you're in on the default port, which is 8081. And it has compiled successfully, which is what you want to see. And that means over here, our expectation is that we get a big hello to all YouTube and Twitch viewers. And we should always know what victory looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before we press the
We
button.
should.
Hello, all YouTube and Twitch viewers. Yay. So we have successfully built the scaffolding and dependencies that we're currently leveraging for this component.
Now the
What
real
would you like me
question,
to do next?
we want to get some
Brad?
database info.
I would like some database info. Should we deploy this to the instance first and make sure it works on the instance?
I mean, that seems like a reasonable step. So I'm going to open up a new, so I can still be rendering locally and deploy remotely. Components, Brad, and we're going to now CLI deploy. And so our expectation is that that is going to upload our component to our instance.
And how do you know it's there?
So I'm going to go to that scope, actually.
And does it show up in Studio?
Nope.
Oh, it created a scope.
So it creates a scope. So every component, so a scope can only contain one top level component.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard limitation, is only one.
You can create the scope first and then use that scope
and the
name
scope,
when you
in
do
fact,
the project.
was created first. So you can use a pre-existing scope, or you can create a new scope. And when you do that project command, it creates that scope right then, even though there's nothing else in there. So it did deploy this because these records wouldn't have existed otherwise.
There it is.
And now I go check and say it's successful. I already knew it was successful because the definition and source code are here. If you do, like Chuck was mentioning, in our building one for UI Builder, you'll get 2 extra records if you're deploying this to UI Builder. And if you have never seen UI Builder, let's go take a look at it. So I went to Workspace Experience, Landing Pages.
Can you bump up the font?
Absolutely. And open up any old landing page there, and then click this UI action that said, and I want to click the one that says open in UI Builder, not enable, because I wasn't ready for that. And what you'll get here is the list of landing pages and then any components that you have that are available for UI Builder to add into landing pages. Out of the box, ServiceNow is shipping 6 of these, I think it is.
I think that's right.
Yeah, that is right.
And we're going to add to these over time. But for now, for landing pages where there are 6 available out of the box, and you can add more yourself, either from building them or getting them from Share or Partner or the store. And you'll see that my component is not here because I didn't tell it to be. But the way it works is you can take one of these components, and if you're on a page that you can edit,
You have to make a copy.
it's awesome.
Yes.
Ooh, interesting.
Where is
Mm.
Go with global. What the heck?
no meetup? Well, what do you have in your box, man?
See.
What's available? Nothing? Meetup?
There's a couple of dialogues that work like that.
I don't know what you want,
Wow.
man. I don't know
That was
what
bizarre.
it wants.
Can we just
So,
make a custom landing
We're just going to
page?
copy this one. We're just copying because.
Yep.
Please make a
cannot
copy of
be
this
edited.
copy.
Please make a copy. I think it's upset with the scope I'm in.
Could be.
So, but in general, the point is that you can take these and drop them in, but I can't do that until I have one that is editable. And I'm struggling with that. We could show that if we wanted to. I have an instance definitely that is happier with me for that.
Can we
but I
just
suspect just
create a
switching over
new-
to ITSM will.
All right.
solve
We got
this for me.
15 minutes. Can we do something with
Yeah.
the database?
I don't know that that's a 15-minute problem, Chuck.
Okay. Would you do that through what, a REST API, or how would you call that so that you could still test your component outside of the instance?
Yeah.
What's the basic approach to say, hey, get me a bunch of records?
Yeah, I'm
Because
not.
we're not dealing with glide record queries. It's not server-side script.
That's step 3, and I'm still on step 2. So I'm not super familiar with how to, or even vaguely familiar. I'm not familiar with how to interact with the server data yet. That's my weekend project.
Is this GraphQL? Maybe?
It's going to be GraphQL. I know that part, but I don't know actually how to do it.
Is it documented?
How to interact?
The GraphQL effect API is documented. I'm looking at the documentation right now.
So the first step was to get a component that rendered.
Yep.
And we
That
did
worked.
that. So the next step, in my world, is to go to the developer site and go to these examples and start with the counter.
Okay.
So there's 2 sort of simultaneous ones, which is under UI framework and the Now Experience UI Framework 101 is understand at least like these first 4 and then move into the counter and then come back and work on state action handlers and maybe down to like life cycle, and then go to checklist and then finish the rest of them and then move on to task board. So that's my sort of like learning plan of how I think that others should go through this.
Okay.
And so if you pull up the counter example, it will teach you how to get through building a simple counter. And we have enough time to do this one before the end of the show. Is that what you want me to go through, Brad?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So there's a zip that you can get here that starts up with some of the scaffolding for you, but we're just going to inject right into the component we've already built.
Brad's awesome counter.
Brad's awesome counter. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, and so this tells you go into your index and add this. And so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to come over here to our view and return, and we're going to replace the current return with the one from the developer site. And that seems to make sense. So it says we're going to put some text. We're going to throw in a simple button. We're going to throw in another simple button, and we're going to throw in a value. And we're even going to say that the value is 0.
This is a bit different than Angular because there's no like meta character to say, here is my value in the HTML part.
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no model.
So, right yet, we don't yet have here's the value. So this is just the HTML.
Okay.
And so our expectation here is that over here, this should have recompiled, but I've got an error. So let me rerun. What is my terminal is angry. All right. So this should compile us a button that doesn't do anything. Two buttons that do nothing and some text. That's our expectation.
I've built those
is what
before.
we're going to get.
Yeah.
Then the next
That's
thing.
how all my buttons start.
So in the example, even it tells us that it's, hey, the buttons don't do anything, which is fine. So it then tells me, hey, there are some useful state things that are going on, which is why I said initially get down to like state and understand these things and a little bit better before you're doing the example. So go read the documentation on state before you get to this stage. We've compiled successfully, which means that potentially we can see 2 buttons on the screen. Yay! They don't do anything, but they're buttons.
They change colors when you click them. That's something.
You have to have a false assertion that it's true that they don't do anything.
So the example tells me, come down here in my create custom element and add in an initial state.
Okay.
Of tally is 0. And then up here, I'm going to need to leverage tally. So that's what we're going to do now. Is we're going to first up here we can handle states because we're passing them into our view. And so we're going to pass that initial state in here, but we still need to do something with it. So we're going to say that state is tally. And now we're going to leverage tally inside of our HTML.
This could get syntax heady.
Which is basically just adjusting value to be tally instead of 0. So we're going to do tally. There we go. All right. So now our expectation when we build this is that we actually have 0 and it's a real 0, but it still doesn't do anything. So if we take a look at the browser, we've done a rebuild successfully, and then that 0 is now a dependent 0. And we're actually gonna, be fun and, why not start at 101?
101 is a binary high five.
Look at that. So we're starting at 101.
Nice.
So the next step now is to make the buttons do something. Because they don't do anything right now. So our implementation for button, we're going to adjust our button to have an on-click event that's going to update the state. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a stub. We're not actually going to put that in there because it doesn't actually do anything. We're going to take this one, which actually does what it says. So let's throw in this update to button, and we start inside the span here. Oh, really? I hate you. What is our auto JS pretty on this guy?
Select it, and I thought it was not KF. It's oh, I can't remember.
I want to prettify you. Do it.
Right.
I don't remember what it is. And
Go up to view, the view menu on the tip top.
Prettify me.
Appearance. No.
Maybe it's command palette. Pretty.
Might be.
Nope.
I had it. I knew what it was.
Someone will tell me in the chat soon.
I'm waiting for it.
So I'm going to paste in 2 on clicks that are the same right now. And so the first one says update the state of tally to tally +1, which is what we want our counter to do, except for, we're strange. So we want to increment tally by 3 because, why would I just take the example exactly as it is? That doesn't seem like me. And then this one, we're going to reset back to 101.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew says right-click format document.
Right-click
That's
format
it.
document.
There is a hotkey with it, though.
I'm sure there is. I just can't remember it.
It was command option shift.
There's
F.
more than one option. All right. Well, I don't care. Pick one.
Wasn't the third one
There we
JavaScript?
go.
There we go.
Close enough.
Although you still have. Nope. Never mind. Never mind. I thought your button tag was whacked, but it's not.
So there we go. We now have 2 buttons, and I
One should be clear.
Reset.
Yep.
The second one. So the first one is increment by 3. And the second one is reset to 101. Pretty straightforward. Nothing earth-shattering here. So we're going to start at 101, and then we're going to increment by 3, and we'll reset to 101. Let's see if it's compiled successfully. We haven't caused any global world errors, which is great. And so we see it's already refreshed locally, and oh, look at that. It's incrementing by 3. It resets to 101. Our button does things.
Nice.
It's not as exciting as you wanted, Brad, which was retrieving glide records and doing things with them. But
next week.
But we got to where I hope to get to.
So hey, we made something interactive happen. I think is a good second place.
So next week, we'll get to actually like getting a record and doing something with it. But this week was getting our component to actually compile and build and deploy to an instance and work. And we will update the YouTube here with how to fix that particular error. It seems like it's a permissions error with Brad's laptop, and we'll figure out how to get around that.
We'll get that going.
And share that with you. Hopefully you're not operating under at quite as restrictive, at least on all of the machines you have access to in your life. I know I've been doing a bunch of development on a personal machine myself because I tested both internal and external experiences for this in the past week. So that turned out
So
not amazing, but we got through it. It wouldn't be live code if it all went perfectly the first time, right?
that's right.
These are
So
real problems that real people have.
we did get a couple of questions, and before I go into those, I did not get into the remote desktop. It won't let me to manage the
Okay, no
recording,
problem.
Andrew.
Let me.
We got a couple of questions around how this is different, how this UI components is different than Angular and Service Portal. Was one of the themes of some of our questions, right?
Okay.
So this is our new UI components. It is totally separate from Service Portal and Angular JS. So it's using a new framework overall. So it's not something that you'll be, using that same paradigm as our Angular JS. And I don't know if you guys want to add to that at all.
Sure, I'll add just a little bit, which was that, with Service Portal, we were locked into a particular Angular version. And what we're trying to do here with the Now experience and the new UI framework that we have deployed here is ServiceNow is owning this tech stack. And what that means for you as developers out in the wild is you can rely on the build process to be updated and the technology behind it to be updated and leverage new things because ServiceNow's owning it. So we didn't own Angular, and when they stopped, supporting the Angular version we were on, we were basically, stuck. Because if we updated the Angular version, we break everybody's stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and if we didn't, we don't enable all the new features. So what we're doing with this framework is owning the interaction between you, the developer, and the ServiceNow instance. And we can insert the tech that will drive any of those APIs in this build process, and we can upgrade those as long as we maintain the promise of what we gave you still works the same way. So we can enable new things, maintain the APIs because we own them, and the connections between those APIs and whatever technologies we use to do the rendering of those. So we could, just as an example, be using React right now to build the component in the background. And we could switch that out with something else, as long as we still maintain the promise of when you give us this input, you get this output. So that's the intent here. So it's a shift so that we can maintain building new interfaces with new technologies, but not having you, the ServiceNow developer, having to learn all of these new technologies or get locked into one in particular other than ours. Does that sound about right?
Yep. Protect against technical debt.
Yeah.
We have to be very afraid now. Nathan Firth said, I was able to install Now CLI.
Thank you for watching, Nathan.
The world is unlocked.
Yes. So we will definitely be adding more enablement here. This is just a first release, and it's a fairly limited scope of enhancing what you can do with the agent workspace. We're going to be expanding that over time. But for the Orlando release, this is for adding to landing pages and the ribbon and related lists for agent workspace. So it's a fairly contained area that we're enabling right now, but that's going to expand over time as we make these tools more available and more streamlined for ServiceNow developers. And the developer site is built with this.
I was wondering if you're going to mention that.
So the brand new developer website is built with the same technology. So eventually we will be enabling, being able to build whole, larger systems with this technology. Well, that sounds like pretty good coverage of that question. Were there any other questions, Brad, that we hadn't hit?
I think most of them have been answered in the chat. It was a pretty active chat today. Thanks everybody for joining. And but yeah, I think we covered most of it.
Sweet. Well, let's wrap up. One of our favorite ways to wrap up, right? Let's rate our beers or whatever beverage you have. Today it's all beers, but
8th Street Pale Ale by Four Peaks Brewery. I'm going to give this the 1/4 point success factor because Andrew bailed us out on that one. 3.75.
Ooh, 3.75. Nice. Brad? You said you were going to be happy. I think it's a 4.
The worldwide, this is actually a 4.5. This is an incredible.
Oh my goodness.
So
okay, now I'm really jealous.
Now I want one.
I was jealous before. Now you
should. It's very good.
Awesome.
A 4.5 is fantastic. My old Rasputin, this Russian Imperial Stout, was exactly as advertised. So it's a solid 4. It is good. It's funny and enjoyable.
And the cause of many typographical errors on this video.
Nope. That's just me. That's me without enhancement. Is all of that kind of fun. So thank you for joining us today. We're excited to have all of these things launched this week. We'll definitely be doing more on this same topic later on.
Yeah.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say something about knowledge. So we don't have a further update for our knowledge conference right now. It's still slated. We expect to have more information. And at the very least, we're going to be adding some digital components for folks who can't make it to the conference. Whether or not the conference happens live or not, we're going to do something. So we'll be involved in that, and we'll share with you information as we have it. And we look forward to that time period because we spend a lot of time before the conference building stuff for you, the ServiceNow developer, and we want to share it with you. So we'll figure out a way to share this stuff with you folks. And we really appreciate all of the active chatter today in the chat and bearing with our, technology stack issues. And we'll share that out in the comments, how we fix that for Brad. And really appreciate everybody. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Chuck. And have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks, everybody.